Welcome to the My Personal Football Coach Youth Soccer Player Development Podcast, episode 19 with Jess Ibrom.
Welcome to MyPersonalFootballCoach.com Soccer Player Development Podcast. Discover all the secrets, hints and tips about soccer player development and soccer coaching from some of the leading figures in world soccer. Here's your host, Saul Isaacson-Hurst.
Hi guys, welcome back to another show. This week we've got a great guest, Jess Ibrom, who's now the Technical Director of Football in the Cook Islands. He's got a real interesting story about his journey, starting off as a young aspiring footballer into full-time coaching. So, you know, obviously a lot of listeners, I know you guys obviously already have a coaching career or aspire to work full-time in football. So really interesting journey from Jess, and talking about his journey from working as a part-time in football to full-time to travelling overseas via New Zealand and now the Cook Islands. So lots of valuable, interesting lessons to learn. Also about player development in different countries as well. So another great show. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Busy at my end, just prepping for the conference in Philly. Looking forward to meeting up with lots of people. We just literally finished the app. The app now is available on Apple and Google Store for players using the Dynamic Ball Mastery, the world's leading online technical training program, can now work offline on their phones or on their tablets, downloading the practices to watch on their phone and do, and obviously getting a lot more regular hints and tips sent directly to them to their phones and tablets. So if you are a member, check out the new app. If you're not a member, get online now, join up and improve your technical development, whether you're a player or a coach or a parent interested in technical development. Go to MyPersonalFootballCoach.com and sign up and try it. The Coaches Pass going really well, getting lots of great feedback. Been really blessed. I've been travelling around the world, visiting academies, and I'm carrying on doing that in the next 6 months. So I plan to post all the sessions of my visits. So obviously I've posted recently my trip to Man City, some of the sessions I saw up there, some of the interesting things. I'm going to be visiting several academies up in the next coming months. So I'm going to be posting sessions on there, and the Coaches Pass as well. So remember, that's online resource for coaches. It's got lots of techniques on there, 1v1 techniques, skills, ball mastery skills, but also team sessions now. So lots of quality team sessions, ball mastery, 1v1 sessions, but also shooting sessions. So that's coming regularly. So check that out as well. Lots going on, all busy, but without further ado, let's get into the show. So, Jess Ibrom, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Great to be here, Saul.
Can you just give us a little bit of a brief background about your playing and coaching history, please, up to this point?
Yeah, like every young boy, I guess, wanted to go on and make it professionally in the game. I think you realise sort of as you get towards your teens and that it's quite a competitive game in England. So I pretty much played from the ages of 8 all the way up till 27, and had a number of professional trials with clubs in England at varying levels. Quickly realised obviously I wasn't going to make the grade as a professional footballer, and then I really fell into coaching around about the year 2000, and I was introduced to a coaching company in the US, which a lot of people have followed that route, and I just went out to America in the year 2000 and coached at varying levels. Your typical summer camps, college level, ODP, Super Y League level, club teams, recreational soccer, travel soccer, just lots of varying different levels. And I've done that for around about 5 years. It took me up to about 2004. Then I quickly realised to really make a career out of football coaching, I had to come back to the UK and gain my coaching licenses. So that's what I sort of started on that journey. And then I was fortunate, I was taken on as a football development officer for a club called Kings Lynn Football Club, which is at the time we were playing, I think it was around about Conference South area Conference North during at the time. And my role was development officer for the club. So I oversaw all the youth development from pretty much under sixes all the way up to reserve team level. And I performed that role from 2005 to about 2011 as a football development officer. And then I got the opportunity to go abroad. And I'd been seeking an opportunity to coach abroad for around about 2 years or so. And then I had two opportunities come up. One was in Vancouver as a technical director over there. And one was at an elite football academy in the South Island of New Zealand called the Asia Pacific Football Academy. And we worked in association with Chelsea Football Club. So it was a really good opportunity for me to go over to New Zealand, a different country, different culture, to immerse myself in an elite football environment. Obviously working closely with Chelsea as well was quite a unique opportunity for me, and then took that role on as high performance coach there. And then the academy was we were doing quite a successful job in terms of moving players onto the professional level in US colleges as well. And so the Wellington Phoenix, which is the only professional club in New Zealand, plays in the Hyundai A-League. They asked us to sort of relocate the academy from Christchurch, where it was at, to come under the banner of the Wellington Phoenix as a club. So I then followed the academy up with some of the staff, and I was head of the academy there for just under 2 years or so. In between all of that, I was fortunate to do a lot of travelling within the roles that I had at the Asia Pacific Football Academy to countries such as Bangkok, Hong Kong, Mexico, US, Australia, and some of the islands as well, recruiting elite level players as well. And then, just finished off my role at the Wellington Phoenix, and then to where I found myself to present day as technical director for the Cook Island Football Association.
Fantastic.
So that's just a bit of a short-winded version of it.
Perfect. So we're going to dive in a little bit more in detail in a bit, mate. So just rewind that. And what was your first actual coaching experience?
First coaching experience was actually in the US, and it was at a summer camp level in Connecticut.
And so, you went out there, and what experience did you have? Any experience before you went out to Connecticut?
Very limited, probably voluntary coaching, just at a local club back in England, but nothing of any great magnitude. And then it was just really going out to the US was fantastic because it was an opportunity to really just completely immerse yourself daily by coaching and working with kids. So this is because I did the same beginning part of the journey as you. I went out to America also to my coach, and that's what I recommend young coaches to do. Just like you said, it's such an amazing experience in terms of, number one, the amount of hours you're coaching every day, and the different abilities you're coaching, because you actually get to coach some good players, but also then you're coaching kids, beginners, and summer camps and travel teams, and it's such a I think it's difficult to replicate that, especially in England, isn't it? Getting that daily time on the pitch with players in the early part of your career. What do you think about that? Very, very much so. I completely agree, and I think as well in terms of confidence building for young coaches as well, to have that opportunity to go to a different country and like you say, just to be able to accumulate that many hours of just coaching at varying levels is priceless, to be honest.
And so then, tell us a bit about how your coaching methodology grew. How did it, as a young coach stepping into that, who taught you how to coach, or what was your methodology at that time, and has it changed?
To be honest, I mean, at that time for me, it was about accumulating experience. It was trying to find my own pathway. I wouldn't say I had any great mentor at that time. It was really when I came back to England. And then I was fortunate. The football development officer at the time, he moved on, but I worked under him for probably about 4 to 5 years, and through that's where I really, really created my own sort of methodologies, my style of coaching, how I work with players, and that's something I'd say that I've moulded over time through different experiences and different cultures that I've worked in, and it's sort of been carried on to a degree. I'd say I've got a really good foundation in the US, and even more so in the UK, in terms of actual knowledge, developing my knowledge and game understanding. And then coming out to New Zealand and working in the environment I was working in really accelerated, my own learning then at that point.
So tell us a little bit about your time then at Kings Lynn as your development officer. What was your roles and what was that like? And then how much time did you get on the pitch, and how did that grow you as a coach?
I'll say it was fantastic, because you was involved with a club, and you can't beat being involved in the club environment on a daily basis. And for me, all right, we're a semi-professional club at the time, but there were some good players that were coming through the club. I think for me, I had the opportunity to really develop something. It was a bit of a blank canvas. There'd been a lot of work that had gone on previously to me coming into the role, but then the steering group, the committee group, in a sense, said, look, you can take this in whatever direction you want to take it in. And so across that 4 or 5 year period, then I really developed the elite level side. We created a lot of very good links with professional clubs. So we'd have regular games against professional clubs locally to us: Norwich, Ipswich, Colchester, Cambridge United, Peterborough, Histon, such like. A lot of developing of coaches, and the programme itself, it was quite a big remit. It was anything up to about 900 kids a week, covering a radius of about 50 miles. So, and dropping into that was all the school initiatives as well. So it was very diverse, and you was spread out across a lot of different areas, but it enabled you to gain some really good practical coaching experience. And for me, I was working with all the elite teams, so that was a really good opportunity for me in itself. We go on international tours as well, to Spain, Italy, within England as well. So it was just accumulating a lot of really good experience.
And what those elite teams, what league did they play in?
So we didn't actually play within a league. It would up to youth team level, under 18 and above, and they would play sort of locally, regionally, and whatever else. What we would try and do is, and it was difficult because obviously we weren't a professional club, we would try and replicate the centre of excellence model to a degree, and we would then, we'd take all age groups away to, say, Luton for 2 days, and we'd play all their centre of excellence teams, or we'd go to Norwich and do exactly the same. We'd go to the training ground and we'd play their academy teams. So it was an opportunity for our kids to, accelerate their development, as well as the professional clubs sort of looking at our players with the opportunity to, if any really were highlighted, they could bring them into the club as well. So it was a model that worked quite well, but it only worked due to the number of games and the quality of the opposition we were playing on a regular basis.
What was the aspirations? Was it to get players into the first team at Kings Lynn, or get players into pro clubs at other clubs and their other academies?
I'd say both to a degree. Obviously, the pinnacle really was to get them into professional clubs, which we did have some success at varying times. Year on year, there might be a player that would go across to Norwich City. We had a really good relationship there with the club there. But really, it was Kings Lynn level, and then beyond that, it was other clubs. If they weren't hitting Kings Lynn level, it would be other amateur clubs. So really, just retaining the players still to stay in the game at a semi-professional level, which a lot of them, have continued to do so now.
So 2011 comes around, and you obviously get bored with the sun, the hot weather, and the glamour of Suffolk, and decide to make a big move. How did that come about, and what was your thoughts about that?
It was quite an interesting journey for me to get out to New Zealand in itself. I'd been pretty much applying for roles abroad for around about 2 years. In that time, I probably had 2 interviews, and then in the space of 2 weeks, 2 opportunities just come up out of the blue. Like I say, one was in Vancouver and one was in New Zealand. And then I followed the route down to New Zealand because the opportunity to work in an elite environment, but also a club, such as Chelsea as well, it was too good an opportunity to turn down, really. So then I sort of jumped on a plane, and next thing I know, I'm travelling out to New Zealand on my own. I'd done quite a bit of research on the country itself, and before I knew it, I was there, and I was working in the environment, and it was excuse me, it we were quite fortunate because we were very, very well resourced, funded, and we had a lot of elite level players, not just from within New Zealand, but the Oceania region and beyond that as well. So we were recruiting players from South America, Mexico, some players from Asia as well, and we were bringing them into New Zealand to develop them as players, to move them onto the highest level in the game. Ideally, it would be to bounce a player back to Chelsea, but that's not easy in itself. So I
remember coming across this project many years ago, and my thoughts at the time was that who's running it, where's the money coming from, and how much involvement has Chelsea got in that program?
Yeah, so it was. So at the time, I actually came into it, and the director of football was Giovanni Fernandez, his name was, who's actually at Oceania Football now. He was previously at the IMG Academy in the US, and it was quite a unique model because it was obviously we're affiliated with Chelsea, and Chelsea had as much involvement as they wanted to. We would have coaches that would actually come over from Chelsea, and I know obviously you know one of those coaches, and they'd spend time with us. We had Dermot Drummy, under 21 coach at the time at Chelsea. He was over for the Hong Kong Sevens, and then he travelled down to New Zealand, spent a couple of weeks with us, and then myself and Giovanni, we would have the opportunity to then also go back to Chelsea and spend sort of professional development visits there. We would share intellectual property as well, and it was really, really open from Chelsea as a club. It was just such a fantastic, unique relationship we had with them, and we still do to this day as well. So it was an opportunity for Chelsea really to identify players within this part of the world and beyond, as a recruitment opportunity as well, I guess.
But the players pay there to come to attend the academy?
So we had a model whereby the players would come in, and they were, to start with, we had a scholarship system in place where we identified the best up-and-coming under-17 New Zealand national players, other national players as well from some of the island nations. So it was a fully funded project. We had strength and conditioning coaches, we had full-time physio, we had full-time performance analysis guy, myself, Giovanni. It was just like a replicated version of an elite football academy in the UK. And then the players themselves were, they were brought in as elite level players. So, we invested in those players to hopefully move them on to a professional club in the future.
So you went on these recruitment trips around Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand, USA, Mexico, Australia. So how would that work in practice, organising these trial days or these recruitment trips?
So we had quite an expansive network of people out in the field. If I give you one example of Mexico, I've been there numerous times, and we would go over there and basically run these showcase events, and our contacts on the ground, their job or role in itself would be to basically get prospective players that ideally we were looking at certain age levels to come to one central venue, whether it's Monterrey, whether it's Playa del Carmen in the southern part of Mexico. We could have anything up to 100, 150 players that would come down from all different clubs as well, some of the Mexican clubs as well. And then it was an opportunity for me and Giovanni. We would go in here and we would observe these players. And so we'd observe them in their own environment. And then if obviously there was players that stood out, then we would open up that pathway for them to then come to New Zealand, for them to gain a good education in a good country, as well as being in an elite football environment to develop as a footballer. And we've done that, in numerous different countries: Bangkok, Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, US as well. It worked quite well, and it was an opportunity for us to identify, a lot more elite level players, and that's why the model worked so well, because we weren't just transfixed on just Kiwi players. We had international players that come in as well. So it was a good mix in terms of the actual playing group.
So how many different nationalities did you have there at the academy?
We had New Zealand, Japanese, Australian, Singapore, Hong Kong, Mexico, and then there might be one or two of the island nations as well, New Caledonia. And we'd have players that would come in. It would be a continuum cycle of players that would be coming in on a weekly basis that would be identified or recommended to us.
And so these guys, it's like a full-time program. It's run like an academy in England, if you like.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was just, and a lot of the actual academy itself was the managing directors of the actual academy. I visited Chelsea on numerous occasions, and a lot of the interior of the actual academy was a carbon copy of what they had at Cobham. So like the boot room, the boot troughs, we just tried to replicate as much as what we could. And it was a very, very unique place, and it was most definitely the elite football facility in New Zealand at the time. And so tell us a bit about then
your role in that, in terms of what was that like for you as a coach now, dealing with these, elite players or elite players that are very close to that level in a full-time environment. I mean, well, that's a new challenge for you. How did you deal with that? And then, how did you structure your program? And where did you learn, you get your ideas from for this?
Oh, it's fantastic. For me, I'd say it's professional development. This is where I really, really started to accelerate my learning. I was very fortunate. I was working alongside someone like Giovanni, who is obviously Brazilian by background, so it's a completely different football philosophy and way with which we work with the players. It's sort of away from that structured environment and sort of structured learning models that you see quite a lot in England to a degree. But it was very different for me, and it was I had to be very flexible. But in terms of the actual program itself, me and Giovanni, we collaborated quite a lot in the actual program, and it would be an ever-changing model, but it would always stay the same in terms of the culture of the academy and the philosophies with which we wanted to develop the players in. And for me, working with these elite level players, and it was a really, really fantastic experience for me, because I learned a lot, not just about myself, but in terms of elite level performers as well. And just last week, I just watched New Zealand versus Peru. There was two of the boys that were part of the academy at the time. They were playing for the All Whites. So it's pleasing to see some of them have gone on as well. You've played a part. You haven't had the biggest influence, but you've played a part in their development. So it was good. It was a good challenge for me.
And in practical terms, in terms of like possession design and things like that, what did you do to help give you ideas and to plan sessions? And did you source other materials? Did you look? Did you ask for support in that? Did you how did you deal with that in terms of professional development?
So whenever we would have our opportunities to obviously visit Chelsea, we'd put a lot on them as much as what we could. A lot of the program and the football was driven by the director of football, which was Giovanni at the time, and the actual model itself was driven by him. So we had a trainer model which I've actually taken on, and I moved it on to when I went to the Wellington Phoenix, and I've moved it on now here to being here in the Cook Islands, but just in a more simplified way.
So tell us a bit about that. Tell us a little bit about that training model.
So the training model for us itself is trying to explain it in such a way. So we would bring players in, but we wouldn't pigeonhole them into a specific position as such. So if we was identifying a player, we wouldn't. If we identified a player in the field in Mexico or whatever else, we wouldn't specifically look at him and say, he's going to be a number 9, he's going to be a number 10, or he's going to be a number 4 or whatever else, because we knew that in the future a lot of these players, when they would move on, and they were not all going to go to a professional level, and if they went to a US college, which was the other pathway that was running alongside it, then the college coach or club coach in a professional environment could perceive him in a different position. So for a lot of us, we would look to develop the players to make him multi-positional. So for the games program we had, we didn't play in a league as such. We would play opposition which would challenge us in terms of physicality wise. So we were playing teams that would be 4 or 5 years older than us, senior men teams or whatever else. but work with the players and coach the players in such a way that they would be comfortable in terms of playing with the game, facing the game, playing in the game on the side, back to the goal as well, but actually teaching all these different concepts in this weekly training model. And it's a bit different from a lot of other training models that I've seen on a personal level. Within clubs as well, they've got a set syllabus, if you like, and this week we do this, and then week 6 we revisit this. Whereas us, across the week, we would pretty much try and hit each one of those criteria, if you like, by touching on as many different aspects as we can throughout the week, rather than just having a set topic for the week. It would fluctuate on a daily basis, but you're trying to hit every element that you can throughout the week.
And so what were the age groups you had there? They were just 17, 18s? That was the main age groups?
So for us, it would be age-wise, it would fluctuate in terms of the group, but on the whole, it was from the ages of 13, 14, 15-ish. I'd say they were the real main crux of the group, age-wise.
So you got these 13, 14, 15-year-olds, and so, what how did that work in terms of schooling?
So we were actually affiliated very, very closely to a school that was 7 minutes down the road. So we would... the players would get dropped off, they'd go to school, the usual typical model. We'd pick them up direct from training, they'd come in, they'd train, they'd be in the academy environment Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We would usually have a game in midweek, we would have some, activation sessions, strength conditioning sessions, and whatever else, recovery sessions that would all be across that working week as well. So they would be, the kids would actually like it, especially the boys from South America and Mexico as well, because it was an opportunity for them to develop their English language, but also gain a really good, credible education as well. And New Zealand, from afar, is actually quite a sought after hub for academics in terms of because it just ticks a lot of boxes. It's clean, it's green, it's very, very. It's safe as a country. The climate was quite perfect as well for us, so we were out, every day of the week, every month of the year.
And what about where did all these players live?
So they lived in local homestays, probably within a 15 to 20 minute radius of the academy itself. So directly after training, then the usual, minibus, they drop them off at their different homestays. So they're all in homestays with Kiwi families.
Excellent. So then tell us a little bit about then your transition to the academy, Wellington Phoenix. What did that work? We were fortunate to move a couple of players on from the academy in Christchurch to the Wellington Phoenix, and then this come about around about time when the Wellington Phoenix took on a new head coach, Ernie Merrick, who's now head coach for Newcastle Jets in the A-League. And Ernie was fantastic in the sense that he was a big advocate of youth development through his previous experience when he was in Australia. And so conversations went quite quickly, and as a result of that, he was very, very keen for us to operate the academy not in Christchurch but in Wellington. So we relocated the academy in Wellington, then we came under the banner as such of the Wellington Phoenix, and then that's how my role sort of was born out of that. That was part of the transition of me relocating from Christchurch to Wellington, as well as bringing some of the players into the club who are potential professional players in the future. So then my role then became head coach at the academy at the Wellington Phoenix. It was a new concept for them, and it was a new academy in the A-League at the moment. They're now starting to. It's always been quite top heavy, but now they're actually putting a bigger emphasis on youth development in a lot of these clubs. So what was the main difference then in terms of the transition, in terms of day-to-day life for you when you're working?
Going into that sort of professional club environment, players shifting around at a drop of a hat. We had the academy structure as such, and then born out of that was the reserve and then the first team. But my job was really to manage, coordinate the academy program itself, drive it forward, and then at different points, players would then shoot up into we didn't have the reserves at the time until year 2, but then players would shoot up from the academy. They go into the first team, whether it's training or whether it be reserved, friendly games or whatever else. So my job was really to drive the program forward, to develop game schedules, recruit players, prospective players, and just really make sure that the players are taken care of off the pitch. Their well-being and schooling and everything else is up to date. So it was quite a broad, worksheet, if you like.
And what are the ages did you start there at that academy? What's the earliest you had players in?
Earliest we would have players in would be, I'd say it was 12 years old. And then due to the interest, because obviously it was the first academy the club had operated, it exploded from there, and then it sort of developed, and then across the first 18 months it developed to 34 players, and we had a lot of international boys in there as well. But due to passport restrictions and whatever else, it was always going to be a limit for them to play for the club itself. But they always knew that their pathway might be to US college, or it might be back to their home country at a club in their home country.
And so tell us a little bit about the recruitment process then for an academy there in Wellington.
So we had a number of different programs that would enable us to recruit players into the academy. Obviously, the usual was relying on contacts out in the field, or then going to observe games, tournaments in the region. But then we would have weekly programs whereby we would bring players in, and it would be, open to players to come in, and they would spend a week in a residential camp, and they would basically replicate the academy program model that we would do with the academy, but they would do it just across a week, condensed it, nutrition seminars, whatever else. And off of that, then that was an opportunity for us to further recruit players into the academy on a full-time basis as well.
And what were the facilities like there at the academy?
Not to the level that they were when we was in Christchurch. Wellington is very it's tough in terms of field usage and field access. That's changed quite a lot now. I know they've got their own standalone training facility, but at the time it was quite difficult for us to actually get real good quality training pitches that we can train on. So you had to simplify a lot of what you'd done previously, and just utilise what you had available at the time. And then I was saying we're fortunate because when we relocated the academy and the kids that we brought into the academy, we were all the boys had the opportunity to go to a private school in Wellington. So academically wise, it was a big pull for players to come in. So we were fortunate to utilise a lot of their facilities as well, which was to a really good level.
And so what was your games program like? Did you play other academies or local teams?
Yep, a lot. And again, it was using the model that we had in Christchurch as well. We would play a lot of local federation teams. So there's 7 federations in New Zealand, and so we would have the opportunity to play their federation. So if we brought a group of, say, 2000s, 2001s, we'd play their 99s, 98s, just to give them a little bit more of a challenge, because we were fortunate we had these players in 6 days a week. So these boys were to an elite level in the grand schemes of elite level football in New Zealand. So we're fortunate we managed to develop quite a comprehensive games program. Now they've taken it on because they've got a reserve team, and a lot of those younger players now playing the reserve team, and the reserves playing the National League of New Zealand. So they're playing against the likes of Auckland City that go to the World Club Championships and whatever else. There was other opportunities that went and played in the Hong Kong Sevens. So there was always, it's quite a comprehensive games program. And there's a lot of games from it, just varying levels throughout. But it was, I guess the most positive thing was it was managed, and it was managed, by myself, but coordinated by Ernie, the head coach.
You've been to Chelsea. What was the level like, within New Zealand generally of these players?
I'd say obviously, yeah. If we're looking at New Zealand, it's not Europe, and it's never going to be Europe. There's a lot of good players that have come from New Zealand, that I'd say, you can't compare to, the top level clubs in England. For me, there's no comparison. I think it's few and far between. I say the most prominent players come out of New Zealand is Winston Reid, and then there's others that fall underneath it. So that gives you an idea. But Winston didn't spend a whole chunk of his time in New Zealand up to the age of 18, and then jump on a plane and go to England. So the level is it's a lot different. And
I mean, do you think why do you think that is? Is it is it because rugby, the All Blacks, is the number one sport, or they're just not playing as much, or just there's not a bigger pool of players to pick from?
Yeah, I mean, I think population in New Zealand is something like 4.5 million people. Rugby is a dominant sport. There's lots of different sports, and it's very difficult because I think you take it for granted in England. Yeah, the culture is what it is. That you're completely immersed and surrounded by football every single day in so many different means, and the level of competition is just so high. And there's a lot of academies, there's a lot of clubs doing lots of different things in New Zealand, but I wouldn't say there's any sort of great alignment to one direction.
Interesting. So then your next challenge comes up. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and your decision making process. So then it's just I was seeking an opportunity, really. I wanted to stay in the region, and the opportunity to come and work in one of the island nations in the Oceania region. So there's 11 countries that fall in the Oceania Football Confederation, and so it just come out of the blue, really, a recommendation, and so I spoke to the president of the Cook Islands Football Association, and within 2 weeks, me and my fiance, we'd gone from New Zealand and we were in the Cook Islands. So give everyone a little bit of an understanding of the Cook Islands, because they might not know about it, in terms of the geography, where it is, how big it is, population, that sort of thing.
So I'm based on the main island here, which is Rarotonga, which has got a circumference of around about 32 kilometres. And there's 15 islands in the Cook Islands, covering a geographical range of the equivalent of Western Europe. So it's very big and sparse, and some of the islands in the Cook Islands are unpopulated. We're the most heavily populated island in the Cook Islands, population around about 14,000. It's quite a spread out area, and I've been fortunate. I've visited 2 of the islands as well. So you can go there by plane, or you can go there by boat. But if you go a plane ride to one of the closest islands, you've got the Northern Group Islands, you've got the Southern Group Islands. If you wanted to go to one of the Southern Group Islands, it could be 45 minutes on a plane. If you want to go to one of the Northern Group Islands, 45 minutes, and then another probably 4.5 hours plane ride.
Wow, so sounds pretty challenging. What is your remit then? What's as a technical director, what are you going to do?
So I wear a lot of different hats. I guess my role is really to prepare national teams for competition, recruit national coaches, so identify prospective national coaches here in the Cook Islands ideally, develop the recruitment and talent identification model to expand our recruitment, because there is a lot of Cook Islanders playing in New Zealand and Australia as well. So areas that we need to open up as potential players to come and play and represent the Cook Islands. Coach education is a big remit for me, certainly now at the moment. And I'd say one of the biggest areas of development I was brought in from the president was to develop academies and national academies. So I've been here 16 months and I've been fortunate to develop 6 national academies. And I guess for all the challenge that we have got here, one of the pluses is because it's so small on the main island, you can get around quite accessibly very easy. And so we run under 17 men, under 20 men, under 15 girls, under 12 boys, under 14 boys as well. and we try and align the national academies with future Oceania and FIFA tournaments that are coming up. So it gives us a better opportunity to be better prepared, rather than, bringing a team in six weeks prior to a tournament and then expecting us to do well at the tournament.
So we've had some good... Tell us something, sorry to interrupt you, mate. Tell us about these academies then. How do you get, all the players? The 6 academies, they're based in different islands, are they? Or they're all based on your island?
These are all, they're just based in the main island of Rarotonga,
okay.
And then at different points, in terms of potential players in the outer islands, obviously it's a lot smaller, and at different points we will have players that will come in and out of the programme as well as represent the national team. But the main crux of the players, we have some international players as well that reside in New Zealand and Australia, but the main, I'd say 90% of it is here in the main island of Rarotonga.
So for instance, you got your under 12 boys, right? Mm. So how many players have you got in that group?
So we've got 16 to 18 players in each of the age groups.
And then how often do you have those players?
Currently we have them in 2 to 3 times a week.
Oh, so this will be their main footballing experience then?
Yeah, to a degree it will be. I mean, here the football season runs from mid-July, the local domestic season, to mid-December. Believe it or not, there's 7 clubs on the island and there's 46 teams.
Wow.
So the league structure that we have is under 8s, under 11s mixed, under 14 boys, under 14 girls, under 17 men, senior women. Now, in an ideal world, we have a model which is every other age group or every age group, but due to the population, it's just not possible. So we'll have players which will flip-flop in between age groups. So some boys will play under 17s on a Wednesday and then they'll play senior men on a Saturday. So the positive of that is they're playing a good amount of games, I guess, across the 6-month period.
And so tell us about the facilities. I mean, what's that like?
Yeah, so we have 2 main pitches. We have a full training pitch, gym, lecture room, residential block. So we sometimes have international youth teams that will come and stay. We just had Tahiti came over at under 17 level and played our under 17s. Then we have the main pitch, main stand. Yeah, I mean, it's for the level of the Cook Islands, it's a good facility. It's a really, really good hub. We're very, very fortunate. I'd say participation wise, kids play football here in the Cook Islands the most, but we still have those other challenges with other sporting codes such as netball on the girls' side and then rugby league actually on the boys and men's side as well. So it makes it difficult in terms of trying to retain players for the long term.
And so tell us about your recruitment process. How do you go out and recruit these young players, especially the young ones, the 12s, 14s, the 15s, these young boys and girls?
So if we're talking just within Rarotonga, and again, as a positive, me as technical director, I can actually flip between 2 or 3 different venues on the island. So on games usually take place Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And because it hasn't really been any sort of recruitment model previously, for me it's just been about developing pools of players. And part of that process is obviously identifying the players that are really prominent within their clubs, then inviting them into a national training camp across 2 to 3 days, and then off of that they come into the academy on a full-time basis. For us, the next step is international recruitment. So for us, we need to be tapping into players that are, obviously living in New Zealand and Australia and other places such as that, because we want to try and develop our pool of players to a bigger level.
And so just tell us a little bit about that. I mean, working within those islands, those structures, how often do you get out off your island into the other ones?
So within the Cook Islands, just last week I went and delivered a coach education course to an island called Atataki. It was about 45 minutes from here. Went to another island, Mitiaro, population's around about 160 people. So went they had a big sort of... it's called the Mania Games, which is it's like the Cook Island Olympics as such. So football was part of the sporting code. So I went over there and obviously watched all the that was taking place there as well. And then if you go beyond it in terms of, then you just fall into all the other islands that are, within the Oceania region, such as, Tahiti, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu. So I'll travel to those other islands if it's international fixtures or international tournaments as well, travelling with the teams as a technical advisor.
Do you have like people recommending you players from all these other regions and all those islands that spanned across?
Yeah, definitely. Really, it's just working out the best feasible route of how we can actually bring that player in on a full-time basis. The positive is the way in which the Cook Islands is, a lot of the kids have got families across lots of different islands. So, for instance, if there was a player in a different island 45 minutes away, the likelihood is they will have family residing on Rarotonga. So there's an opportunity then to bring them in, on a full-time basis, put them into a local school, and then they're part of the programme.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the first team then, so the top of the pyramid, if you like. What's that looking like at the moment?
So for us, we obviously have the senior men and senior women. We're a bit different to obviously lots of other international teams, because due to the size and where we're currently ranked, where we are. We don't have that frequency of international fixtures, which is something we're definitely addressing for next year as well. So for instance, the men, their last international fixture was 2015. They should have an international fixture in 2018. The women will have a tournament next year as well. So it's difficult in a sense because a lot of these players you're losing back into their club environments, and then you've got to pull them back in for an international tournament or an international fixture. But that's just where we're where we're at. But we're addressing it definitely for next year and beyond.
So they won't have a game for 3 years.
So the last fixture was 2015, 2016, so it'll be 2018 will be their next fixture.
So what's the next fixture?
That's still to be formalised.
Wow. So
it could be. Obviously, we have to look for someone who, in an ideal world, is within our region. It could be someone like Tahiti, Hong Kong, Macau. Yeah. Someone who's fits within our level as well. We've got to be realistic.
So who manages the team?
So we will bring in a head coach that will specifically just manage the national team as well. For that
one fixture?
Yeah. Well, it could be one fixture, or it could be two or three fixtures, depending upon, how the calendar works out and the international window works out next year as well.
So how many times did the boys come in then, the first team, men's team, to train?
So as it stands, we have a lot of boys that are in the under-20s as well. So they'll be training on a regular basis. But in terms of the full national team, they will just come up in a training camp leading up. So it could be anything from 6 weeks out from the game, or it could be a smaller period of time. My job is, I guess, is to monitor those players, that are playing in their other environments.
So they won't. They won't have come in for the last 2 years since the last fixture.
Probably not those players. No, probably not. No.
So that must be quite a challenge, for any coach coming in.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, no, definitely. But it's just been realistic of where we currently sit, geographically and everything else. It's not easy. It's not easy, but you've got to try and, as I said before, simplify your methods and just try and maximise what time you do have. That you do have with the players. It was different, like when we had, just recently we took the under-17 women away, but we had 15 of the players were from the main island. One player was from New Zealand who came in for the tournament itself. So we were able to train that team from February all the way up to the tournament in August. And as a result of that, we were successful at the tournament. We had a successful tournament as such.
And so what's the ambition? Is it to try and get that, to improve those standings?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, being realistic, we're not going to go to a World Cup, but we can certainly have a level of success by not just representing the Cook Islands to be successful at future international tournaments, but actually better prepare ourselves and make sure that the next tournament we have a better standing in that tournament we did do the previous one. An example I can give you is the under 17 women. Previously at under 17 level, they hadn't ever qualified to semi-final level at Oceania level, and we managed to do it this time round. So for us, we have to hit that again the next cycle round.
And so then, for you personally, what's your ambitions within the game?
Continue to work at obviously a national level, international level, potential in a professional football club environment. I'm looking to do my pro license in 2019. Continue to sort of accelerate my own learning, and it's sometimes difficult in this part of the world because you haven't got Europe on your doorstep, so you can't just I'm going to go and jump into this club, and I'm actually back at Christmas, as I told you, so I'll probably pop into a few clubs as well. But just continue to try and accelerate my own level of learning. I've moved a lot more into coach instructor, coach educating in the Oceania region, which is an area that I'm enjoying as well. And
I was going to ask that as well, I suppose, similar to what I said earlier. How do you keep fresh in terms of coaching, getting new ideas and continue your self-development when you are so isolated like that?
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, we're fortunate we do have a lot of people that come into the island from the Oceania Football Confederation, so it's an opportunity for me then to tap into their knowledge through the coach education courses that we have on. We recently just had a technical director conference that was led by FIFA in New Zealand, so that was another opportunity. And it's not easy, but I guess it is what it is. Yeah, you're still having a daily challenge, you're still learning lots of new skills that will hopefully enhance you for the future as well. But then, when opportunities do come about, obviously me going back to England at Christmas time, that'll be an opportunity for me to visit a few clubs and a few people that I know in the game as well.
So, I mean, look, you're living the dream. You're full time in football. And what advice would you give to a young aspiring coach who wants to work full time in the game?
I'd say reach out to people as much as possible. One of the best bits of advice I was given by Dick Bate, who, when he was working for the English FA in 2011, was know your coaching pathway, network a lot. A lot of opportunities that I've been fortunate to experience by visiting professional clubs all around the world is just by knocking on doors, and just really make a real lifelong commitment to developing yourself as a coach and making sure you do your coaching licenses. I think I heard one of your podcasts recently with Stephen Constantine. I completely agree, and you've really got to make that commitment to doing it. And I've been fortunate. I've followed the path with the English FA, and I've done the USA license as well, which is just another unique experience for me. But you just got to be continually looking to learn as much as possible. I just think as well as an opportunity to work abroad. I think sometimes you can get swallowed up in England, and I think there's a lot of opportunities to work abroad where you might be able to develop a better profile yourself with more opportunities than what you might not get in England or in Europe.
And what about advice for a young aspiring player?
Obviously, depending upon what region they come from or where they play.
Anyone, you're a young player. A lot of parents and players listening to this podcast, they want to dream of pro football. Whether they, what would you advise? Whether they're in New Zealand or in London or anywhere in the Cook Islands.
Just don't give up. Don't give up ever. Work ethic is the biggest ingredient for me, and I've seen a lot of very limited players that have gone on to play to the professional level, and they've just gone through with in terms of their work ethic and just desire to develop themselves and just graft every day, basically.
Jess Ibrom, thank you very much.
No worries, Saul. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for the opportunity.
And we'll catch up soon, no doubt.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate.
Thanks for tuning in to the MyPersonalFootballCoach.com Soccer Player Development Podcast. MyPersonalFootballCoach.com's Dynamic Ball Mastery Program is the world's leading online individual technical training program, proven and developed at the highest level in the English Premier League. Sign up now to train like the pros and take your game to the next level. Master the ball, master the game.